I'm Professor Lotz, and you're watching Roller Planet. I'm Stacy Lotz. I teach sculpture at Monmouth College, and I've been a teacher here for 27 years. And we are in the Lengy Everett Gallery, which is located at the Hughes Library. And so this is a really nice space because all kinds of people come to the library, and not just students from campus, but the library is an open place to this community. I think, art gives us an opportunity to use our voice. And it gives us an opportunity to use that voice in a way that can impact a whole lot of people. And I think that if you're smart about your art making, you can reach communities of people that maybe you thought you couldn't reach before. Because art can be it's non-threatening, and everybody should be welcome to the table, and everybody should be welcome to the conversation. And I think good art has the ability to welcome everybody and to bring everybody to the table. And we can set our differences aside, and we can talk about the things that are in front of us, the things that make us laugh, the things that make us cry, the things that make us angry. Art has the ability to take on all of those different vibes, if you will. And, that's a pretty powerful thing. It's a pretty powerful way to communicate with the world. The title of this exhibition is Next Skate, All Skate. And I think that is a term or a phrase that many of us who roller skated and continue to roller skate are familiar with. And for me, that was an inclusive title that could bring everybody to the table. It doesn't matter how well you skate or not. When they announced Next Skate, All Skate at the rink, that meant everybody was welcome on the floor. There was no special kind of skating that you had to do. It wasn't a two-step. It wasn't a moonlight couple skate. It was everybody. Everybody was welcome. And so I think that phrase, you say that phrase and people get a smile on their face. They know what that means. And it means we're all welcome. Let's all do it together. This body of work started while I was on a sabbatical, which is a fancy word for saying that I had a semester off to do research in my field. And for an artist, that normally means making art. And so I started in 2021 was the semester that I was off. And, there were a lot of pretty serious things going on in the world. There still are a lot of serious things going on in the world. And I started a body of work that was really serious. I was looking at political things, socioeconomic issues about race, politics, and I was making that work in my studio, and it just got too hard. It was too heavy. And people that know me know that I have a serious side, but I'm a little goofier than that, and I like to have fun. And that work just wasn't fun because it was too heavy. And in the midst of that, I kept thinking I kind of made a piece that was about recycling and the earth, because environmental issues are a serious thing right now. I had been collecting plastic bags and thinking about the environment. And I kept thinking, what could I do with these plastic bags? And I started just kind of mindlessly cutting the bags into long pieces, like opening them up, cutting them down the side and folding them out. And then I started braiding them. And I started braiding all those plastic bags together. And I was collecting bags from every time I went to the grocery store. And even though I was trying to be environmentally more conscientious, I was still getting plastic bags at the store when I should have been using my recyclable bags. But I thought, I'm not just gonna throw them away, I'm gonna make something out of them. And so I started braiding them, and then I started thinking about how bags were used even like during the Depression, when bread bags would be woven together to make rugs. and they were actually used as functional items. And I thought, we have all this plastic that is totally ruining our waterways, our land. I mean, it never goes away. And so as I started braiding them, I started thinking about this braided mass of plastic that was just kind of being spewed from the earth, and that we know floats in our oceans, litters our land. And so there's a piece here that has well over probably 300 bags. And even though the piece is here in the gallery and it's finished, I'm still braiding bags at home. And that thing kind of spun off then into me thinking about, well, I keep wanting to use all these bright colors, but the world isn't really a bright place right now. And there's another piece here in this show that's called Keep On Truckin', and it addresses the pull between wanting to make lighthearted art and the pull of serious art. And the ends of that piece are actually weighted down by old cast iron window weights. And so this idea that you're wanting to pull through something that's really hard or difficult, and those two pieces were really kind of the spark. And then I thought, what greater thing was there in the 70s for me? Nothing got any better than roller skating. And once my mind kind of started down that roller skating path, all kinds of things opened up. My hope when I was making the work was that I could touch people in a way that would make them recall an easier time, a time that wasn't so heavy, to smile, to feel a little ping of joy in their heart, to make the hair on their arms stand up thinking about something that reminded them of skating. It could be a song that you heard at the roller rink. It could be the smell of the roller rink. It could be the color of the skates that were there. And I found that just by titling this show Next Skate, All Skate, I didn't even have to make the work that did that, because everybody just came to all of that on their own. And so for me, that's a success. And then, I've just put a few pieces of work together that can help be kind of, I think, the catalyst for other stories. And there's other work in this show that's more reminiscent of just the 70s in general. But I can't think about the 70s without roller skating, because I was a kid that lived at the skating rink every Friday and Saturday night. Every marathon skating event that happened when there was no school on certain days, noon to midnight skating, both sessions, Friday, Saturday night with the neighborhood kids. I think the skating rink defined who I was in the 70s as a kid. And it was a powerful, powerful thing. It makes me really, it's kind of an emotional thing to think about it. And that might seem silly. I suppose that's my goofy side coming out, but it's just a really powerful thing. And I think anybody that skates or used to skate, they understand what I'm talking about. They get it. They totally get it. But I think that the early 70s were a time of change as well. And I think one of the things that's become interesting for me as I was working is that I realized that while my memories of the 70s are very fun and lighthearted, there were some pretty serious issues going on in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. A lot of the same issues that are going on now, race, environmental, the women's movement was happening, a lot of social unrest, Kent State, a lot of kind of political things were going on. And of course, as a kid, I wasn't really aware of that. But in making this work and doing research, I realized that a lot of the things I was trying to get away from in that first body of work that I started, all really related to the time that we're in, right now. But I made a very purposeful choice to kind of steer clear of that in this body of work. And it's not that I don't know about it and know that those things were going on, but that's a different body of work. That's for another show. That's not for this show. I think the pom-pom is an iconic symbol for kind of finding your place, kind of moving into a level of where you've gone from kind of a beginning stage and graduated into something just slightly above that by having the pom-pom. And I think the kind of pom-pom that you had was definitely a symbol, just like wearing name brand shoes or anything else is at the skating rink. Although pom-poms didn't have a name brand on them, they were all just pom-poms. But if you had them, you must have been a skater, and you must have been a good one. I totally remember my pom-poms. And so here's a funny story. As a kid in the 70s, crafts were a really big thing. Doing things with yarn, weaving, embroidering, knitting, crocheting. My great-grandma taught me how to crochet. And so crafting was really a big part of the 70s. My mom was a crafter, macrame, all sorts of things. And I made my first pom-poms. And there was an orange one and a yellow one that I made myself. They were not very big. And I remember feeling really proud of them and putting them on my skates and then going to the rink and getting there and being like, oh no, these just aren't gonna cut it. These are not gonna cut it. And I wore them because I made them. I was really proud of them. But they were definitely homemade. And not long after, I had to bump up to some pom-poms that I actually bought at the skating rink. And they were a large pom-pom. It was one, but it was about the size of two put together. And they were white, and they had little light blue ends on the very tips of them. And it's funny, the pom-poms that are in this show, I actually invited a bunch of my girlfriends who were also skaters. I didn't know any of them at the time at the skating rink, but we all skated there. We all have very similar memories of the rink. And I had them make pom-poms with me. So all of the pom-poms that are in this show are handmade. I'm happy to say that they're not the little tiny ones like I made when I was 10. These are like full size, but we laughed so hard while we were making them because we kept telling stories about different people we remembered at the rink and how when your pom-poms would get loose on your skate, you would have to bend down and you would twist the pom-pom around so that the thread, the lace on it would get tighter on your skate because you didn't want them falling off to the side and dragging on the floor. But, it's that kind of thing like that we all did. We all did that at the skating rink. And I have a very, vivid memory of a girl at the skating rink who was older than me. She was probably a high school student when I was probably 10. She, of course, my memory makes me think that she had 20 pom-poms on each skate. Her pom-poms were bigger than her skate. And they drug on the floor, and they kind of had this whole life of their own, this big giant palm on the front of her skate. And that's why when I mentioned my very small pom-poms that I made, those just were not going to cut the mustard because those didn't say enough about what I wanted to say about myself. And I think the pom-pom was kind of a social statement. And I do remember, though, at a certain point in my skating career where I didn't have my pom-poms anymore. And then I went just more to a kind of a clean-cut skate, right? Because then it was like you almost graduated out of the pom-pom into just I don't need the pom-pom anymore. I had to rent skates for a long time, and on my 9th birthday, I got my first pair of roller skates and my own case. And, I was uptown. I had my first pair of skates, and not long after that, I upgraded to an even better pair of skates. And then of course pom-poms had to be added, and because the kind of skates you had and the kind of pom-pom that you might have worn said something about who you were as a skater as well. And so, the whole kind of finding out who you were happened, I think, for me at the roller rink, through the skates, the kind of clothes you wore, the kind of pom-pom you had, the kind of skate case you had, the kind of skating that you could actually do or not do, who you skated with. I mean, there's a whole community, a whole vibe that happens at the rink. And even though you're all there together, there's still those subtlety things that are going on. And I like to think that because I was a kid, I just went to all of them. I didn't realize that maybe I shouldn't be skating with those older kids. I love to skate with the older kids. I was that little kid that would follow the older kids at the end of their line if they were moving in a line going around, and I'd try and hop on the end and keep up with them. And I wasn't so good at it early on, but as I got a little bit older, I could keep up with the line. So a memory at the roller rink could, like you would take a break to go to the snack bar and get some snacks. And you could be having your snack, and you would hear if a certain song came on. And for me at the roller rink, it was Kung Fu Fighting or a Casey and the Sunshine Band song. You would just hear the first note of one of those songs. And I mean, you just put your food down, put your snack down, just set it on the bench and get yourself out on that skating floor and go around as fast as you could. And try to get on one of the ends of those lines of those legend skaters, and follow through on those songs. I mean, if I hear one of those songs on the radio, and actually, ironically, this morning on my way to work, I heard a Casey and the Sunshine Band song, and I thought, this is my day. This is my day. It doesn't get any better than this. I could just turn around and go home right now. I don't need to do anything else. I've heard my song, I did a skate in my head, and that was the final skate of the night, I guess. So, I think certain music, songs, I think I said before, smells, the weight of your skates, the sound of your skates in that metal case moving around, clanging around the wheels, those things are just like they were just like yesterday to me in my memory. I can remember people being at the rink who were doing like dance skating, and they wore like these kind of like ice skating outfits, and they probably competed someplace. I did not do that. I was a pretty good skater. I could two-step and use, forwards and backwards. And I mentioned, being able to skate with some of the older skaters and doing like waltz skating and the moonlight skate. And, I was kind of a fast skater. A couple of times I can remember in my time at the rink where I was benched for skating too fast. And you get the whistle blown at you and you're benched for a song, or you're benched for 2 songs. You can't skate anymore. You're being too reckless. I used to try to race, because every session of skating would have races. And my friend and I would try to do chariot races, where one is squatted down and the other one pushes. And we weren't the fastest in our age group. We usually got second place because there was just a couple of other girls that, you couldn't touch them. They were just too damn fast. But we like to try anyway. And I think I didn't have any kind of formal training. Of course, then skaters would stand along the back wall and dance, like, kind of shuffle skate. And you weren't going around the rink, but you were kind of standing at the back of the rink in a line, kind of line dancing on your skates. I think it's funny too. My husband plays pool with one of those guys that I considered a legend skater, and there was an article in the newspaper about this show, and he saw the article, and then he shared with my husband a skating story where he said that he and his friend, the other legend, we all skated in Galesburg, but he said, there was this rumor that there was this really fast skater over in Monmouth. And so they came over here to the rink. You know, they were probably 16 years old. He said, we came over there. That guy, we skated circles around that guy, you know? And they were both really fast skaters, as well as really good, just general skaters. But I just thought it was funny that, you know, he remembered that, like, going to a different town to race a so-called fast skater and then just making him look bad at his home rink. And my husband said, he got pretty jazzed when he was telling me the story. He said it was like he was reliving that moment of just like skating circles around that guy. and this, again, is a memory that a lot of people have, that we didn't necessarily skate together, but we have this. So when you went, where you hung your coats, you stored your skate case like on the floor, or you could put it up above the coats. And we all remember kids who couldn't skate very well that would go over there to hang their coats up. And the coat rack was low enough that they could grab a hold of it with their hands. And then they would kind of like swing underneath and they would fall in to the skate cases and coats would come down. And that was kind of over in a corner next to where the pinball machines were. And so there'd be like kind of stumbling and falling around and coats going on and people kind of swinging from the coat rack. And, you know, and I think we all did that as beginning skaters. You know, it's just, you couldn't help yourself. You grabbed onto whatever you could to stay on your feet. And I think we all have really fond memories of the snack bar. I have had friends who no longer even live around here, who I don't even see anymore, who sent messages to me that said, you know, remember the crinkle cut French fries, and remember getting a Pepsi in that little wax cup, those Pepsi, you know, like they have, and you'd buy a pack of licorice and then bite the ends off of the licorice and then use their licorice as a straw for your Pepsi. And it was like, yeah, and as soon as people shared those memories with me, I mean, it just all like, it just floods back to you so quickly. And then of course, you know, I think probably the best memories are, my parents took me to the skating rink. They were both skaters. And that would have been the early 70s. And what's kind of funny is that I have a very strong memory of going to the rink with my parents. I probably started skating when I was 5 years old. So, you know, every rink has the legend skaters, you know, the folks who really like get on the floor and everybody kind of goes, whoa, though they know how to skate, you know, and that you aspired to be when you were learning to skate. And, you know, there were two guys at my rink. And I always think about the movie Roll Bounce, which was a favorite of mine. And because the characters, I could identify with the same characters that skated with me. You know, so Sweetness in that film, who's the kind of the legend of the rink, you know, there were legends at the Grand Roller Rink in Galesburg. And as I got to be a better skater, I oftentimes got to skate with them, like in a couple's moonlight skate, and I was like a little kid compared to them, you know, and they probably weren't that much older than me, probably 6 or 7 years, but you know, when you're 10, that's quite a bit of difference. And they would ask me to skate, and I mean, I would just, yeah, of course I'll skate. And then, you know, all my friends would be, how do you get to skate with those guys? Oh, and you know, boy, if that doesn't make you feel good, I don't know what does. And those guys are still around. I see those guys sometimes, and I always say to them, you know, some of my best memories are at the rink were when you would ask me to skate with you, because that was a really big deal. And they said, well, you were a really good skater for a kid, so, you know, and I think that's that part of the skating rink where community lives. Like, I didn't know those guys other than from the skating rink. And it was an innocent way of making friends with people, learning how to interact with kids that were older than you, kids that you didn't really know. And, you know, if you were there to skate and that's what you love doing, you didn't care about anything other than the fact that they were good skaters. It didn't matter what they looked like. It didn't matter where they lived. You were there to skate. And I think that, you know, that is a really powerful, powerful thing. And I have to think that even though I don't skate anymore, I have to think that that community still exists at roller rinks. I don't know how it can't, because everybody's there for the same reason. And I think, boy, do we need that right now, being able to like come together, have fun, enjoy yourself, not worry about where you're from, what your politics are, or anything else. Let's just put some skates on and skate. Let's skate. Next skate, all skate, right? You gotta do it, man. It's so good. So good.